All right, Victor. Hey, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I've really been looking forward to doing this for some time, and really excited to bring you on, number one, because I am very curious about your story, how you got to where you did today, and we'll get to some exciting stuff there at the end and talking about some Westfield development stuff. But I really just want to dive in on how you got to where you did and what your story is and what compelled you or what led to where you are today.
Yeah. Well, it's become a running joke in the planning department when I say at planning commission meetings or council, whatever it is, that, I've lived here my whole life, whatever, but this is my story. So I have lived on or near 186th Street my entire life. In the house that my wife and I built back in 2019, you can look at the backyard and see the house I grew up in. So that is coming into this counselor role is my perspective, my background on wanting a community that we can all live, work, grow, etc. But I have that older perspective. So it's unique because I'm the youngest person on council, being 30 years old, and I'm also the youngest counselor in the county as well, come to find out right now. But I also want us to be true to who we are. So I want to keep Westfield's charm, but also progress, move forward, because we got new generations moving here all the time from different coasts and all over the world. I've met a couple that just moved from Ireland as well. So
Really?
Again, we're getting people from all over the world moving to Westfield. And that's what happens when we become the 6th fastest growing community in the country. But anyway, going back to my story. So lived here my whole life. I was raised by my grandmother. My parents always been around, but predominantly living with my grandmother. And I graduated from Westfield High School in 2011. Just before graduating, though, kind of went through my own transformation, and this is what really put me on the path of service and my passion for Westfield. So in freshman year, I come in, as I'm looking out this way, seeing the high school, come in, I was 250 pounds, overweight, always been the kid that had been bullied. So just complete 180 from who I am today. Not knowing what I want to do in life, this and that, and just feeling very down and depressed. So then fast forward to freshman year of November, and I'd always been someone who went to church, but just never heavily invested in my faith. And it was at that point where I had this random urge to look up pictures of Jesus on the cross on my computer. So I found this one, and it just really hit me emotionally. And that was the night where I really just gave myself to him and been all in on my faith ever since. And since then, since letting Jesus take the wheel, this is how my life has become what it is.
Very
Just
cool.
him letting dictate where I go. And so around that same time of that transformation, so then between freshman year and sophomore year, I lost 100 pounds. I came back sophomore year, 150. People didn't recognize me, but it was pretty crazy to go from, again, the kid that had been bullied to then starting to feel like I was a something. I've always been a something, but just the mindset-wise of, oh, where's my place? I like to tell this story that sophomore year, first day, going to English class, she taught my teacher both freshman and sophomore English, and so I had her the year before. I go in, she's doing roll call, and she says, "Victor, I saw you come in." I raise my hand. She's like, "Wow, Victor, did you get a haircut?" So that's what set the tone. I always like telling that story.
100-pound haircut.
Yeah, exactly. Just trimmed a little off all around.
So was it mainly just like diet? Like, obviously, you make choices, and we all have to make choices.
Yeah.
And you probably had to cut out a lot of choices, but was it mainly diet, working out?
Yeah, and so a diet, again, a little bit of faith, a little bit of puberty. And I always told people back then when they asked, I was like, well, I decided to start wearing a belt. So that helped tighten the reins a little bit as well.
Sure.
And in terms of exercise, not really, besides playing video games. So I guess that helped with the diet, but then also cutting out a lot as well. It was also during that time where my grandmother, she was battling cancer, and so I was living with my parents at the time, and I had to get to a point of having a mind of my own, stop eating fast food so much, stop drinking soda so much, so on and so forth. So just, again, really discovering who I was, coming into my own being, my own person, and putting myself on a path that I wanted to get on.
Yeah, and it ultimately, it comes down to discipline, right?
Exactly.
Like, I am a terrible snacker, which is why I don't buy snacks.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I would devour everything in my kitchen. So
Yeah. So then through sophomore year, that's when we got the mascot Rocky here at the high school, and that also put a little thought in my head of, oh, maybe I want to be mascot. So I ended up being mascot for both junior and senior years. Those ended up being the best 2 years of my life back then. And again, just going from someone who was just berated to, in a way, I was still experiencing my own forms of bullying, but going to someone that I could be somewhat embraced and celebrated. It just did tremendous for my confidence. And then again, at that exact same time, Westfield became a city. So I went through my own transformation, and the city was going through its own transformation back in '08. And being mascot, I would end up going out to ribbon cuttings or nursing homes, being out in the community, whatever it was. So that's where it was really implanted then of when can I be able to serve my community in whatever capacity.
What compelled you to want to go to the ribbon cuttings and that sort of thing as a person in high school? Because, as my, early 30s, I felt compelled to do that. But, to do that as a 16 to 17 to 18-year-old, I can't ever say that I would ever do that.
Well, and really it was more so just because of feeling somewhat of a responsibility for community involvement with, again, having the mantle of mascot, where I'd be at the games, whether it be football, basketball, whatever it was. So then that extension of being out into the community, there'd often be those community requests of, hey, can we have the mascot show up? So it's much like Blue does with the Colts. He's out and about all the time, and he does a wonderful job. I wish maybe I could have stayed on that mascot path a little bit more, because again, being at that NFL level, that's something to aspire to. But it is what it is.
For sure. So you're in high school, you're doing the mascot thing, you're feeling some sort of, feeling compelled to do work in the city.
Yeah.
And then where to go from there?
Yeah. So after graduating from Westfield, I went to Huntington University. So private Christian school up by Fort Wayne in Huntington, Indiana. So went there for broadcasting, did my 4 years. So I go from and also back in high school, I had a little inkling of broadcasting, being at WJL down at J. Everett Light, North Central. So I'm thankful now that, how many ever years later, we're starting to do that kind of stuff here at the high school, get those same opportunities. But yeah, following the broadcast route, that's kind of where I thought I was going for doing broadcasting in sports. But again, God has another plan. So certain doors opened after I graduated, where I was able to work at the State House and then be campaign manager, so on and so forth. So really, again, learning the ins and outs of government, both state and local, traveling the state, doing certain things, and just, again, getting an eye and ear for what I want to do, who I want to be in the future.
Did you always know you were going to come back to Westfield at that point?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'm sure you're coming back during – and I don't know how far, Fort Wayne, 2.5 hours, is that about what it was? So, I'm sure you're still coming back, but you're not having the same level of involvement because you're going to school, right?
Yeah.
So, at what point did you realize, or did you always know?
I always knew it. And the people at Huntington, they also knew. I was known as the Westfield guy.
Okay.
I let my passion show in Huntington that I had this great love for my community.
And then at that point, though, to your point, Westfield just became a city. So, were people just who is this guy?
They were
Westfield.
What's Westfield? Is it North Carmel? And I'm like, no, it is not. And to this day, when everyone or whomever asks about where the Westfield borders are, or they have a Carmel address, or et cetera, down by Village Farms, et cetera, I say everything north of 146 is Westfield, and thankfully there's certain things like Grand Park and so forth. We're getting our own name now. And when I was in Huntington, also people would think of Carmel in a negative light, so sports wise. But yeah, trying to differentiate that, and I think we're starting to do a good job of that.
Yeah. Okay. So then you graduate. Then what's next?
Yeah, so graduating Huntington, working at the State House, doing campaign stuff, and really where I am today, it's just because I started showing up. I started showing up to city council meetings, APC meetings. I was the crazy guy that I really haven't missed a council or APC meeting since, oh gosh, I don't know, 2017 outside of in 2019 when my wife and I went on our honeymoon. So,
Shame on you.
I know, exactly. So I've really tried to be present and involved, and that's honestly what led me to starting my Victor and Westfield page in January of 2020. And I did that prior to the mayor at the time, Andy Cook, appointing me to Planning Commission and Board of Zoning. I was just wanting to start my page because I saw a need in this community to get information out there. People were asking all these questions on the community groups and this and that, and I just wanted to have a central location where instead of posting everywhere, I can just have this one centralized location where then it can be shared out.
Yeah. And I do want to get to the Victor and Westfield page, but I do want to ask you a question. So, like, you went to school for broadcasting media, and what you felt probably was going towards sports. So, like, and obviously you always felt like you're going to be compelled to come back to Westfield and be involved in your community. But what led you more to the political side or city side than maybe another avenue?
Yeah. Well, it really, again, just going back to my faith on where God wanted me, where he wanted me to plant my feet. And as I continued to just be present, be involved, just what doors were opening up. So back then, I just thought, the best route, I guess, to take would be being in an elected role, because as I would experience being on APC and BZA, BZA had a little bit more control, but APC, you're just an advisory board. So it's not like you have much control, much say of what's going on. You're just advising the council on any certain decisions.
Sure.
So when you start seeing certain things happening or not happening, you start to feel this responsibility, again, as someone who's lived here, has this determination, this drive to, we can be better. And I'm always asking that question of, it's not just a why, it's why not. If others are doing this, our neighboring communities or others around the country, whomever, if they are doing it, why not us? And I've had that same mentality on myself as well. If someone else is doing something, well, why not me? If they can do it, why can I not do it? Trying to get rid of that word of can't, that not existing, and just doing.
I always feel like if you truly want something, at least from my experience, you set a goal and you just tunnel in on that goal and you don't allow anything else to get in the way.
Yeah.
And I do want to get to the Victor and Westfield page because I just spoke before we got on here, was like, I think I was one of the OG followers. So you started the page back in January of 2020. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
Yep.
Okay. And from my understanding, you were doing some, outreach on social media, but you didn't have your own page. And then there might have been some run-ins with people having issues with possibly putting your information out there on other public forums. So then you took it in your own hands and said, I'm going to start this thing and go for it. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, I was making certain posts on the community pages and putting in all this effort, but my post wouldn't be approved or this and that. And just like, again, why am I putting all this effort if it's not being utilized? So just trying to change my mindset of relying on others and finding out who I am, that I can do it myself. I don't need to rely on others to get their permission or whatever it is. Just do it yourself. And if anything, I guess I'm kind of fast forwarding here, but what I try to tell people is that if there's anything that you can learn, it's just be confident in yourself and just start walking. You don't need to start running right out of the gate, even start crawling, but do something that works towards what your ultimate goal is.
Because I'm sure in the beginning, like, you're putting this information out there, there's definitely probably your first, like if I'm starting a page, it's going to be my family and friends, like kind of interested. And then it becomes, okay, some random guy named Bob started following me. This is cool.
Yeah.
But now it's gotten to the point, and it's not about the following. I know you know that, but how many followers do you have? You're close to what, 4,300?
So I just was looking at my stats over the weekend, and over the last 90 days, I've gone up over 400 followers, and I'm now just very close to 5,000.
Very cool.
So it's, again, crazy to think 4 years ago that I just had a couple hundred, and then it's been these little spurts here and there about certain information I've put out in the community, and they getting shared and so on and so forth.
I think the difference that I see in your page versus others, and I'm not like a frequent, Facebooker, but your page is engaging, meaning like it's not just a post. It's usually a post with like 56 comments, but you're also engaging with people, and I think that probably takes it to the next level of like, not only are you putting information out there, but then when people are having questions or maybe making comments, whatever that may be, is like you're challenging in terms of if they were to say something maybe off the record that might not be shining a light on Westfield, is like, you're never going to like talk bad about them, but you're going to engage in conversation and maybe say, hey, like, no, this is my point of view. This is where we're coming from, because ultimately your goal is to shed light on the developments of what's going on. Like, at the time you weren't a part of the city council. So I think that's the part that's so cool, is like, when you look at a page that has 4,300 followers or 5,000 followers, there can be a page that's got 5,000 followers that doesn't have that engagement. And like, you've done a great job in building an engaging page. And quite frankly, that's where, when I started getting involved in the city, I was like, I need to, I wasn't from here, 4 years ago when I moved here, which I no longer do. But at the time I was like, I need to get involved in the community and find people, so I tried to find people that knew what was going on. And so I was like, man, this guy's at everything that I go to. And so I don't know how I stumbled upon your page back in January of 2020, but like, usually like, if I don't know what's going on in the city, I will go to my Facebook and I will type in Victor, and it just kind of auto populates at the top. And then I'll be like, oh man, I didn't know that there's a Holiday Inn. Like, that was the other day. It was like 3 weeks ago. Yeah. I had no idea. I'm a bit removed from what's going on, so I go to your page and I find out like there's a few of these things that I'm not quite caught up to speed on. So super cool. Now, council, talk about running for city council, because like, that's obviously that's what's new and exciting in your life, and it's congratulations. It's an amazing feat. I had the utmost confidence because you have built community. And when you build community, I think good things happen. Talk to me about what that experience was like for you, and ultimately, how you got it done.
Yeah. Well, in first of all, to kind of recap what you were just saying, and again, thank you for all the kind words. I, again, really attribute who I am today to God and my grandmother. I would not be able to do everything that I've been able to do over the last several years without having the foundation of my grandmother in my life, and that has been able to allow me to make certain sacrifices of not having a full-time job, not doing this, not doing that, just the decisions that have gotten me to where I am today. I haven't had to necessarily rely on finances. Now, again, things are tight, but I have a little bit of a cushion to where I can serve the community. And that's, again, my passion. That's what I want to do. That's my focus. Money is not my focus. Service is my focus. That's my priority. I came up with this saying that God didn't put us on earth to have income. He put us on this earth to have impact. And so that's what my priority is. And to the comments on the page, I'm very thankful that for the most part, people have kept it relatively positive on my page. And I think that is because I'm not just a face. I'm not just a brand, a page, where people just go and spew nastiness. I'm engaging positively, and that's the mission. You have to stay positive with it. And also informational. When certain things are happening, this and that, just trying to teach why it is happening and why is it allowed to happen. When we get up teen tire stores or fast food, whatever it is, and I just have to educate people that, it's because it's an approved use. And we have a history of the last 10 years of just these plane unit developments being approved or whatever it is, and that's what's impacting us here today. Whatever we might approve in our first 4 years as counselors, we're not necessarily going to be seeing the fruits of our labor. It could be the next 4 years or however it is down the line, because once it gets out of our hands, it's up to the developer to want to do that.
And then, so talk to me about running for council.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm kind of like Dory the fish. I get sidetracked. But anyway, so once it got to a point over these last 4 years of just really feeling the calling that there's a need for, again, more positive voices in our community, I just felt like I had to step up. No matter what, I was going to do it. I didn't know how it was going to look, but I just, again, saw the need, see a need, feel a need that had to be done. So I came up with my slogan that I still have today. It's We Rise, and that stands for my 4 key pillars, being relationships, infrastructure, safety, and engagement, because I feel like anything that you want in a positive community can be encompassed by those 4 that you can prioritize and focus on. And then again, it seems like every step that I've taken through my life really prepared me for this moment. And when I was being campaign manager for state reps across the state, and I knocked on 20,000 doors and doing this and that, it prepared me for this moment of having that knowledge of how to do it. So I didn't have to hire a campaign firm or do anything like that. I did it all myself, building my website, my brand, my logo, everything like that. I was just doing it myself. And that's kind of been my mentality through life, of just having that lone wolf of, I'll do it myself. Thanos, I'm a big Marvel person, so he says in one of the movies that, fine, I'll do it myself.
Who is it?
Thanos.
Oh, Thanos. Okay.
Yeah. So I've kind of had that mentality of, fine, I'll do it myself. If no one else will do it, I will. I don't like being in the glass ivory tower, whatever it is, titles or whatever to me. I prefer to be on the ground and putting in the work with, whether now it's our fellow city employees or city volunteers, because I've been volunteering with, say, Westfield Welcome since 2017, 2018. So I'm not afraid to put in the work. And that's what I try to put across in the campaign, that, hey, I'm already doing all this stuff. Allowing me to be in this position gracefully will just allow me to have that much more of a voice to be able to represent you, our constituents. And I'm thankful that people saw that in me.
Do you think without your page that this would have been made possible?
Honestly, no, because again, being young, and I'm not trying to use this as an excuse or anything, but this is something I heard very often over the last 10 years. I mean, ever since graduating high school, is, Victor, you're just a kid. What do you know? From all generations, I would hear that. And that's why, again, I started to have the mentality of, fine, I'll prove it. This is what I know.
Yeah.
Age is just a number. I'm not afraid to put myself out there. And that's what I've done to be able to learn. And you can see to this day that, and I hate talking about myself, but I have more knowledge than certain other people do, because they care more about titles as opposed to putting in the work and being present. And that's something that really aggravated me through not just the campaign, but what led me to running for office is, as I've been told, here was this kid that was willing to put in the work, willing to be present, put out this information, being what I would like to think, consider a positive presence for our community, and the people that were getting paid to do it or elected to do it weren't doing it. So again, that's why I feel like I needed to step up to if you're going to get paid to do something, that you need to do it.
Yeah. So kind of pivoting here, I remember, if we rewind the clock back to June of 2020, and not to get off on a rabbit hole, because I really want to talk about the up and coming developments, but part of that is obviously one of the centerpieces to the city, which is Grant Park, right? In June of 2020, there was at the time, no face-to-face, interactions on the council.
Yeah.
And there was this big constituent with Grant Park, and, a lot of different involvements in terms of what was said at the time, handshake and agreements. Has a lot of that been put to rest, in your opinion? Are we past that point? Do you believe what was done correctly, and are we moving forward as a city?
First of all, I think so. I think everything's been put to rest a little bit, and we've kind of hit the reset button at the beginning of this year with having a new mayor, having a new council, having a lot of new people within the administration and so forth. The past is the past. Let's look forward. Look to what we can better Westfield altogether, and that's something that I've appreciated through the administration, fellow council members, et cetera. We have a similar mindset of just wanting to represent the community positively and work together. We'll have our disagreements. We already have had, but we're not going to put dirty laundry out there. We're not going to try to make each other look bad. Our focus is making a better Westfield for tomorrow. So when it comes to Grant Park, we're going to have a big decision coming up here later in the year. A group has been put together called the Grand Park Sports Entertainment Group, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So that's going to come before us eventually on how we partner in the future with a user agreement for Grant Park. We're not selling the park. The city is maintaining that, owning that. But just, again, how can we add community partners for the future? Because government is not the answer. We can get things started, but in terms of growing it, that's in the private sector. So let's try to hand that off a little bit. So again, we can broaden the scope and make Grant Park this. It already is a destination, but a larger destination of things to do. Shop, eat, play, visit, whatever it is around the park.
Sure. Now, as Grand Park continues to grow, like, one of the things that I think that, at least from my own personal experience, is like during peak Grand Park season, I don't want to go over there.
Yeah.
Because it is a disaster. Now, I do believe the road that just opened that runs north-south goes right by Birdie's.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's
the
helped.
Grand Park Boulevard
I think that's helped a little bit, but like, from a community aspect, and from a people coming to visit, like, it's not a big deal, right? You come in for the weekend, you're playing your 4 or 6 games, maybe 8 games in a weekend if you're playing baseball. But from a resident standpoint, how can we make it beneficial to want to even go over? I would even venture to say, like, I don't want to go on Highway 32 that time of year on that section. Now you get further down, it's not a big deal, but that whole hub there is so congested. How can we, not fix isn't the right term, but how can we make it more manageable?
Yeah, well, and that comes down to we just need to be more proactive. We have some things now in the pipeline that I'm looking forward to having discussions and so forth, and just how we starting to develop up the area. But we need to be proactive with our infrastructure, and that's been an age-old conversation that I have learned through the previous 4 years being on the Planning Commission. Is what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Oftentimes we have to wait on funding from the state or road impact fees, whatever it is, to build something. But if you want people to invest in you, you have to be willing to invest in yourself. So that's where I see infrastructure, is that we need to start investing a little bit more proactively with that. And it's gonna take some taking out some bonds and so forth. And I know that having debt is a dirty word, but honestly, it's not. It's just unfortunate how the system is set up. A municipality is rewarded for having a certain level of debt, and that's just how it is. And we can knock Carmel all we want, but they have safe travel lanes, and that's something also that's a priority of mine. Is we've had one is too many, but we've had one too many accidents around the community where it's been head-on collisions, and especially up in our country roads. And it's just trying to make things safer for whether it's our residents or our visitors. And I think also the distinction, and this is something that new Mayor Willis is doing well, of we have an area for our visitors that can also be for our residents, but really trying to develop our downtown, which, the townies, the locals, we will know that, this can be a hub that, say, when Grand Park is packed, you can go to Park Street, you can go to this and that. So we're trying to build up one parking garage being built right now. Another one's under consideration, just more parking. I know that's a huge topic, so we're trying to alleviate that, just everything that encompasses with it.
So talking about infrastructure, I remember Scott Willis talking last year, maybe the year before, how the city of Westfield operates roundabouts. And this is like such a hot topic, roundabouts. But from my understanding, it's like the city of Westfield, at least previous to Scott, was like, hey, we're going to fund half of it.
Yeah.
And then the state's going to fund the other half of it. So what, $4 million, so figure 2 from the city.
Yeah.
And versus whereas Carmel might be more willing and apt to just say, hey, we're going to pay for this sucker.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and again, that's something that folks need to realize, is that the stats that a municipality often waits on to be able to have the funding to build a roundabout or road improvement, whatever it is, are the stats that we want to prevent, whether, again, it's collisions or, very worst case of a fatality, whatever the case may be. That's just how the system is set up, that if you want to get funding for whatever infrastructure improvement project, you have to have the stats and facts to back it up. So that's, again, where Carmel's done well, that they haven't needed to rely on, say, state funding. They've just gotten ahead of the curve. So I think we're going to gradually make that transition. And I'll just use one roundabout that's in my head because I'm talking with neighbors currently about it. There's a development out by me looking to be built off of Casey Road, and I was in a neighborhood meeting with them last week. That, of course, we all want infrastructure road improvements, but there's a couple of different layers to the cake on that. First, is the road within city limits? Because if it's not in city limits, then we have no jurisdiction over it or whatever. And that's how a lot of our country roads are, that they're still within not just the township, but the county, so that falls out of the city jurisdiction. Okay, once it gets into city jurisdiction, how are we going to make that road improvement? Are we waiting for certain funds or being more proactive with it? What does it look like? And that one particular roundabout in particular that is at 186 in Casey, yes, I want it. My neighbors want it. We all want it. It's going to cost $3 million. So, okay, how do we pay for that? And with this neighborhood that is wanting to come in, it's kind of that realization, well, again, back to the stats and facts, we're not going to have the data to be able to prove to prioritize this roundabout.
Because there's not enough traffic yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So
is there no hey, there's going to be 400 houses built here in the next 12 to 18 months, whatever it is. There's nothing like that. It goes off of current stats, and if you don't have the current stats, it doesn't qualify. Is that how that works?
Yeah, well, and also mixed with, say, 400 homes, if that is to be approved, then yes, that does get folded into the priorities of projects. But another issue is that we have a lot of priority projects in our community. So where does that look? And I'm the only counselor, city representative that lives up in the northwest part of Westfield. So, that's still a very much so country area. So I, again, have a different perspective than my fellow counselors do. But we're all going to be, and rightfully so, representing our districts, our constituents of where our certain needs are. So it's how do we distribute those funds? Where can we prioritize?
Yeah, I remember when I first moved here, the sign that said roundabout coming soon on Oak Street. Now, it just got done, right, a few months ago,
yeah.
But so that process was just due to the fact that funding, is that just a funding issue?
It's a funding issue
and a priority issue?
Priority issue, other things down the road. And another big roundabout that's needing to be done, has needed to be done for a long time now is here at 181st in Tomlinson,
100%.
Wheeler. That has needed to be done, and it looks like we're aiming for that to be done come next year now. We were wanting it to be done this year, but just because of structuring and so forth, a letting process, this is one of the roundabouts that we're going to be getting funding from the state. So waiting on that, and then hopefully complete it next year.
Now, can we say that we're not going to do that during peak Grand Park season? Because I know when 191st Street was being done, and I know what was being said was the weather conditions, this, that, the other. But we all know that there's periods of time, especially with that park, in which you can get things done that are not in that window. I think that created a disaster. Yeah. If and when that gets done, is that something that's a priority that the city has talked about?
Well, that one's twofold, because we not only have the peak Grand Park season to compete with, we have the school peak season to compete with.
100%.
So that one most likely will be done out of school time frame, so during the summer. But that's why other infrastructure has been built up, like the Grand Park Boulevard extension. So with that being the main thoroughfare now, then we can kind of push traffic that way, 191st, et cetera. And again, plans are in the works for improving 191st as well, getting that massive roundabout and extending. I don't want to say expanding, because whenever you say widening or expanding, people think 4 lanes. No, just extending the lanes to be more safe. So again, a lot of things in the process. It just comes down to timing, to where it looks best. And unfortunately, you got so many different people hitting you that you can't please everyone.
100%. And not to get in a roundabout, because it's a hot debate, but
we took a turn.
So
we're going around the roundabout.
181st and the road that just got put through.
Yeah.
What's the name of that one?
The Grand Park Boulevard.
Grand Park Boulevard. Yep. That one to me makes me nervous.
Yep.
So
no, I agree. There should have been a roundabout put in there to begin with. I understand. Yeah. And there's several of us that feel that way as well.
Because there's times when I'm at that stop sign, and hopefully people can see the stop sign. I think there's now lights there, but people fly right by there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it just makes me a little bit nervous. Okay, moving on past roundabouts.
Yep.
And no disrespect to roundabouts, because I now live in Arizona, and sitting at a stoplight. Mm-hmm. Oh man, going to Carmel and just being able to just go right through the city without really having to stop.
Yeah.
There's something about it.
Well, let me say one more thing, just when it comes to infrastructure, and then also on the political nature side of things, is that unfortunately, when people think of politics, they think of the president, and they think of Washington or even state, all these higher up, quote unquote, officials that they think impact their lives to a heavy degree. yes, they do, but also they don't. The ones that impact you the most are the ones that are making the infrastructure decisions and public safety decisions and all these other decisions that impact you truly in your day-to-day life. So I see the pyramid as flipped, that those of us that are seen as at the bottom of, being on city council or municipal, whatever it is, are actually more so at the top, because again, that is a wider range that impact decisions made that impact you on your daily.
That makes total sense. So talk to me. I didn't know about this parking garage.
Oh, yes.
And I do have a somewhat of a vested interest by having a place down there. So I'm assuming it's downtown. Like, where is this garage?
The parking garage that's being built right now is going to be at Union Square. It's an old town development right across from Grand Junction Plaza. So where the pharmacy used to sit, they're at the southwest corner of 32 and Union.
Is that where, okay, and this is kind of making a pivot here, like a lot of that development, to my understanding, because I saw some drawings, it looked like, I don't want to call it Carmel 2.0, but it kind of looks like something, a similar design. Like the plan is to have, is it Sun King? Is that in the works, or is that kind of on the back burner?
Sun King, the building design for that particular restaurant user is similar to the Sun King that's over at the Yard and Fishers, but I don't know if it's going to be them. I don't know whom users are going to be there yet. All I know really is that we've partnered with Old Town to be able to build the parking garage, and then we've got another one in the works behind the scenes, and hopefully we'll have some news on that sooner rather than later. But
so then will it be parking below, or is it going to be like
the parking is in the middle of the structure? So around it is going to be apartments and up top, and then below is going to be mixed users, whether it be a business or a restaurant down on the first level. And that's how you can best maximize the space, because just street level parking, that's a waste. You can see seas of parking. Carmel's dealing with that right now off of 31 throughout their area. So how can we maximize the space? We're looking at that for downtown. We're looking at that in other areas of our community. And so you mentioned Carmel 2.0. That is kind of a tough topic. And really all Hamilton County communities are dealing with that. That just looks like Carmel. Well, one, you have to have the realization that there's only so much kind of creative designs you can have in the Midwest that to make it look cohesive and looks like it belongs here. So that's just the day of the age that, yes, things are going to look similar. Now, again, we want to add our own flair to it, and we want to keep Westfield's charm. We're going to be Westfield. We're not going to be Carmel. We're going to be Westfield. Not going to be Noblesville, Fisher, et cetera. We're going to take elements from them, and that's why we're in a real perfect position right now where we can see what has our neighbors done and learn from them to be able to maximize efforts, returns, and progress forward in a positive manner in that regard.
So when is that expected to be done? Like, because I'm looking at it, it looks like they're making decent progress on it, but
I think next year we'll have that done. It just determines on timing. We know how just as a society we've had certain issues when it comes to materials or labor, whatever it is. So I'm not certain on the timeline right now, but hopefully it'll be open come next year.
And then to go alongside that, give me an update on Highway 32.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and that goes kind of hand in hand.
Because it's right up next to it.
Exactly. And they should be starting later this year. It's been a long letting process of acquiring land from the state acquiring it, I should say, and so on and so forth. And again, this is also where I have to learn on how much do I put out on my page, because I've often been over communicating, which isn't a bad thing. I tend to over communicate. But then we start to develop this expectation of, it should have been done yesterday, which, I mean, yeah, probably. But at the same time, just having a realistic expectation that things take time. So the Reconstruct 32 has been in the works for over 5 years at this point. I mean, several things, excuse me, that have been in the timeline. It's been a long, long time. I think Grand Junction Plaza was in the works for over 10 years. So there's many, many steps to get to a phase of where, okay, we can start building. But hopefully reconstructing 32, that'll start later this year. That's going to be huge for our downtown, making it safer, more pedestrian friendly. And that's also a focus that we're going to try to do around the community of having safer crosswalks, making it a more development for pedestrian traffic as opposed to car traffic. And that's a trend. I don't know if trend is the right word, but something we're seeing not just in Hamilton County, but around the country. And also, when I'll say this, one last positive thing about Carmel, when Mayor Brainerd went over to Europe and learned about roundabouts and all that stuff, that was a positive takeaway. And when in my travels to Europe and Japan, learning what other countries have done to handle their infrastructure, and you will see that it is more pedestrian focused as opposed to vehicle focused. And yes, we might be this little town of 60,000 people in the middle of cornfields or whatever, but that's absolutely a right way to go. Instead of having this sprawling development, drive people downtown.
Yeah, I was in Australia in March, and most business professionals are taking the public transit. And it's amazing. It's not just
and we don't have that. We don't have public transit.
It's not just a Westfield issue.
Yeah.
It's every city issue. And most cities, you don't want to take the public transit because it's not safe.
Yeah.
But that's almost every city.
Yeah.
So with 32 being started, how is that going to impact East-West? Because obviously there's people in Westfield that live on the other side, maybe towards Kroger.
Yeah.
They're off of 32. Like, how is that going to impact? How are they going to, and this might be more like state and construction side issue and talking point, but like, how are they going to manage? Because it's already a bottleneck as it is.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
how are they going to manage that?
Yeah, so our stretch through our downtown, that will get widened to multiple lanes. And then once our section is complete, NDOT has the plan to reconstruct everything from downtown Westfield to downtown Noblesville. So that's going to be a huge project, I think, for them. That costs over $30 million. So a lot of numbers here behind these infrastructure improvements. So that's one plan there for the east side of our community. And then the west side, we'll continue to have those conversations. I mean, it has been developing somewhat in having fast food and, the typical things that needs to be able to support visitors to Grand Park, and we can hopefully expand upon that around closer to Grand Park. But what I also always tell people when it comes to the fast food or other businesses coming, I'm just like, why are you so anti-business? Because again, living here my whole life, there should be like a drinking game where how many times I say that, and I don't drink, but just seeing how far we have come in my 30 years from where the nearest grocery store that my grandmother and I would go to was either the Marsh that is now Academy Sports, or we'd have to go down to Rangeline and Carmel to go to Kroger. So having all these new opportunities, whether it be more grocery opportunities or fast food like a Slim Chickens, like I had never heard of them before, but they've come to Westfield. I mean, that is awesome. So having all these opportunities, I just feel that Westfield is very blessed that people want to be here. So now it's just, okay, people want to be there, be here. Now, how do we develop in the right way? So just having more communication, have that dialogue and so forth.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that I was nervous about or am nervous about with 32 is like, I don't want it to, and no shade against Kokomo, but like, the strip of just like
or Rockville Road. Yeah.
Just like Texas Roadhouse and just like some of these chain restaurants that are good places to eat, not saying that they aren't, but it's like, it kind of is, in my opinion, it could start to look like that if it's not done right. But like I get what you're saying. Like, hey, businesses want to come here. That's a good thing to happen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, talk to me about like, what's like the most exciting thing right now? Like you're most excited for Westfield in just terms of like, not just like, hey, we got new leadership, new council members, this, that, the other, like project wise. So obviously we have this bullpen, not bullpen, but Grand Park, project, like, is that the thing you're most excited about, or what's out there right now that maybe people don't know about that aren't on your page?
Yeah, well, I think my excitement's a little bit hodgepodgey if it's just all around our community. And I'm not afraid to say this. I'll just go ahead and say this, that coming out of meetings, it's like we all agree that it just feels like there's this dark cloud that is lifted, and that, again, we have positive people wanting to represent the community, making positive decisions. And I think that is going to just work wonders, and it already is. Going from our first council meeting of the year that was 30 minutes, because our new council president, Patrick Tam, he's just running through it, but he's doing a good job. to our next meeting being an hour and a half, and then tonight having planning commission, got 5 public hearings. So we're already seeing that developers are coming out of the woodworks. They want to be here, and it's just like, okay, with having such a flood of future developments, how do we handle everything in the right manner and not just saying yes to this, yes to that? We got to make sure we're doing our due diligence behind the scenes, and that's something that's been very exciting for me when I'm meeting with staff, the planning department, developers, just whomever it is, just again over communicating. And all the behind the scenes work, that is what's exciting to me, because again, not having a full-time job, I'm treating this like my full-time job, and it's just like a great workplace, because we're all trying to work off of each other, and I think Westfield's going to see the benefit of that.
So is there one project out of all those conversations that you're having that are great, is there 1 or 2 projects that are sticking out to you as like, man, like this is cool if we can execute on this?
Yeah, well, I think we need to execute on our downtown. There's been a lot of cool discussions revolving downtown. Then, as you mentioned with Grand Park, a lot of cool discussions with that as well. I think if we get the partners in place, and then what might come from that, whether it be, again, going off of being a big Marvel Disney person, looking at what Disney was able to do in a swamp, or now you being out in Arizona, what people are able to do out in a desert, or different topographies, what they're able to do. Well, again, going back to the discussion of why not us? Why not us be able to build that in a cornfield? So whether it be a shopping area, like a downtown Disney Springs, or Pigeon Forge, where they have a whole bunch of things to be able to do. There's a development there called the Island, where you're able to eat, shop, and there's a huge Ferris wheel, whatever like that. Again, going back off, I feel like I've said positive a lot, but that we're all having a similar mindset of wanting to move Westfield in a positive direction, and being able to work off of each other. That is something that's going to be exciting. And there isn't really like breaking news developments right now. I know what you're trying to pry at a little bit, but nothing really comes up to my top of my head right now, because again, I've been very transparent through my page.
Yeah.
Of, this is what's in the works. But when something does, again, I'll be sure to share it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think the thing that, excites me is like there is land here.
Yeah.
You go to Arizona, you go to different places in the country, like it's developed already.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Europe, like there is hardly any trees, when you go to certain cities, like it's landlocked. So like there's an opportunity to get this done and get it done right. And the other part that I think is like, what I've been saying since I had moved here was like, what a great facility that we built for Carmel. And if we can just,
in a way, yeah.
If we can, because I didn't honestly realize that until about 2 years ago. It was May, I believe at the time, out at Sun King in Carmel, great spot. And there were kids running around everywhere with baseball jerseys on.
Yeah.
I'm like, these kids are coming to Westfield, playing in Westfield. I don't know whether they're staying here or not. That's to be determined, because there's only so many places to stay. But I'm like, they're spending their money elsewhere. Exactly. So if we can just build things that would keep people either here or close by to, have their tax dollars, spent here, is a positive experience. That's why it's like the downtown does matter a lot. Mm-hmm. And also the things that go around Grand Park are going to matter a lot.
Yeah, when I hear the excuses from developers, whomever it is, of there's just not enough traffic for this and that, I'm like, yes, there is. Because again, to your point, our visitors, we are an export of dollars. So we're an import of visitors, but we're an export of dollars, where you follow all the data that they are coming to play here, but then they are going to the Yard and Fishers, they're going to Hamilton Town Center in Noblesville, they're going to anywhere in Carmel, whether it be Clay Terrace or downtown Carmel, to spend their dollars on food, shopping, etc. So even Kokomo, Indiana is above us in terms of collecting those dollars. So again, that's something that we really have to improve upon, and I've been very vocal about that in whatever meetings, saying, hey, we need to have a destination around Grand Park.
Just as we close up here, you got new leadership with Scott Willis. What excites you the most, about the future with Scott?
Well, as I've been open to say that Scott and I will probably agree on 90% of things, but again, it's important that those 10% that we don't agree on, and again, there's been things in that 10% that we do not agree on, and have had discussions behind closed doors, just because, again, I don't want to make him look bad. He doesn't want to make me look bad, and we want to have, again, that positive relationship. That's something that hurt us over the last 4 years of just the open negative dialogue, whether it be at council meetings or social media posts, whatever it was like that. And it's just, there's no place for that, and let's be professionals. And we've been able to do that so far. And I'm thankful that, like Mayor Cook, he has seen something in me to realize that I have a passion for Westfield, and I'm not afraid to I'm not afraid to say what's on my mind, think what I think, because it comes out of a place of a love. And again, there might be some hardships in that, but we just got to work it out.
And I also think it's a good thing that you don't agree on everything.
Absolutely.
Right? Like if you guys were just having conversations and everything was, rosy, and it's like, it's good that one another, or even amongst, council members or even people in the community, that there's the open dialogue of being challenged, because I always think that's a good thing. And even when I look back at some of my best coaches, they weren't coaches that were just telling me the things that I wanted to hear.
Life isn't rosy.
They were the coaches that were telling me the things that I didn't want to hear, but that I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily what's going on in that 10%, but it's probably the 10% that, you're either challenging him or he's either challenging you, but for the betterment of, what is hopefully a better community.
Exactly. Well, and what I've learned from another coach, Coach Gilbert, that iron sharpens iron. So it's good to have disagreements, and hopefully something positive comes from that. And just, again, overall, whether it be with Mayor Willis or my fellow counselors, again, all of us willing to work together and iron those things out where those disagreements are. It just makes a better Westfield.
Awesome. Victor, thanks for joining me. You can follow Victor. I'm just going to give it to you there. It's not like a plug-in because you don't. But
I've really predominantly just been on Facebook. So Victor in Westfield, I do get comments, questions of, what about Instagram or this or that? I'm just like, I'm honed in. I'm on one. So
it's better to be good at one thing than average at 5 things.
Absolutely,
so maybe that's a matter of that. So thanks for joining me. I really appreciate the conversation, and appreciate the time. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you.
The information contained in this video does not purport to be a complete description of the securities, markets, or developments referred to in this material. The information has been obtained from sources considered to be reliable, but we do not guarantee that the foregoing material is accurate or complete. Any opinions are those of Jason Van Skyke and not necessarily those of Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. There is no guarantee that these statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Investing involves risk, and you may incur a profit or loss regardless of strategy selected. Individual investors' results will vary. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Future investment performance cannot be guaranteed. Investment yields will fluctuate with market conditions. Raymond James is not affiliated and does not endorse the opinions of Victor McCarty. Jason Van Skyke, financial advisor, is located at 3133 West Fry Road, Suite 410, Chandler, Arizona 85226. Phone number is 4803-772-012.